In your white lace and your wedding bells, you look a picture of contented new wealth. But from the onlooking fool who believed your lies, I wish this grave would open up and swallow me alive. For the bitterest pill is mine's to swallow. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're floating in Screamacelica. My name's Kevin Graham, and as usual, on a Tuesday night, I'm actually joined by Do You Think I'm Sexy Era Rod Stewart wannabe Russell Boyce. Russell, what's happening, my man?
How you doing, Kev? The start of the weeks, mate. It's we get our job done early on in the week, Kev. Do you know what I mean? This is just signing off after tonight, mate. That's a week done, mate.
we just kick back and like
we watch the rest, mate. Mondays, Tuesdays, we're pedal to the metal, mate. Do you know what I mean? And then that's us sorted now, man. Feet up the rest of the week, like you say.
It's a strange thing, way, because you were saying off air, and now to all the viewers, listeners, haters, lovers out there, Russell doesn't ken what song I'm going to start with. And starting off with a Jam song tonight, and he's got a Butterfly Collector shirt on. Was a bit of kind of freaked me out.
It's weird because I was thinking that when you were. Once I realised what the song was, I was like, that is quite funny that I'm wearing this shirt at the same time. I know, but that's just written in the stars, mate. Written in the stars. Definitely,
that'll give those who actually think this is scripted something else to say. Aye, that was all meant. That was all meant. That was. Since we're on the subject of Paul Weller, the Jam Style Council or his solo stuff.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I think his solo stuff, the only thing I would say about his solo stuff, right, is I feel there's too much content for there not to be good songs in it. But I think I would like to think if I wrote that many albums, I'd have a few good tunes out of it, to be honest with you. I think the Jam was probably when he was at his best. I like the Style Council's hits, I've got to admit.
Hopefully
I like that
Russell
music
jumps
as well.
Back in there. Oh, Russell's disappeared.
Have I?
Whoa, we've got a pixelated Russell.
Is it?
Aye, you're all right now. Didn't care what happened there.
Neither did I. I'm on the Wi-Fi 100%, man. Sorry about that.
So you're saying you were talking about Paul Weller solo stuff there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he released a huge amount of solo stuff. That's the thing. Like, I'd like to think I would get a couple of good tunes out of that, Kev. You know what I mean? If I'd released that many albums, but his good ones are really good. I think the Jam was probably his best body of work at that time. I think there's something about artists when they didn't have any experience and they're just out there, singing from the gut, man. Do you know what I mean? They've not made their first million yet. It always seems to come out a bit better, doesn't it?
I've actually got into the Style Council quite big over the last couple of months. There was a very good documentary on BBC 4 or BBC 3 about Paul Weller's time in the Style Council. And obviously you love the Jam. I mean, one of my early music memories is going to the youth club discos and jumping off the seats to a town called Malice and stuff like that. Could have known you were Weller doing the jumping. And I probably carried that on well into my 20s, which I probably shouldn't have done. Jumping off the seats, kidding that was Paul Weller, that's one of my Jam's one of my earliest memories. Everybody says you were all right there, Russell, so it must have been at my end. So,
all right, I was going to say, I'm not going
to. We'll move on. Now, if you didn't want to tell this story, but I'm setting you up to tell it anyway, you put a great story on the WhatsApp about the time that you went to the Edinburgh Festival. Do you want to tell it before we get started?
Why not, mate? Why not? I mean, it's got nothing to do with anything tonight, by the way, at all. But I mean, obviously I get a lot of comments about my appearance and all that nonsense, which doesn't bother me. But I was with the ex-girlfriend, and yeah, all right, I was punching, I admit that, do you know what I mean? No two ways about it. That's the whole point, right? You know what I mean? I don't want to go out with someone who thinks as good looking as me. You know what I mean? I want to go out with someone far better than that. Got to aim high. Anyway, group of lads, obviously younger than me, probably went to the gym a lot more times than me, and the likes of, crosshatch jeans or G-Star Raw, Clobber and that, you know what I mean? But I don't know, a bit bemused by how I've managed to, be sitting obviously in a sort of coupley sort of way with this girl, so they decided to target the wee man, and they started slagging me for being like, oh, who you meant to be, Rod Stewart lookalike or something. So just quite sharply, I just quickly turned round and said, just to remind you, Rod Stewart's been with 2 Miss Worlds. I think that's 2 more than GLS ever have, big boys. You know what I mean? That is the look you're going for, right? And a guy across, there was a couple who was obviously watching. I think he was actually a bit annoyed with them, but he actually stood up and started clapping and told them to F off. Oh, it was brilliant, man. Brilliant.
As you says in the message, nobody wearing G-Star jeans is going to slag you, Russell. Eh?
No danger, mate. Not having it. Not a chance.
Right, so we're in the DeLorean this week after that. It's the 1st of April 1996.
Yeah.
And we're fleeing across the M74. It's a rainy Monday night, and it's a strange game. We've got the Monday night game on Sky. For some bizarre reason, we're the Monday night game on Sky. We're mad
was
for
the Monday night football a thing then, Kev?
I can't really remember, but it was maybe just started.
I'm not sure
about that time because it doesn't look like this game had been cancelled and rescheduled for some bizarre reason. It just looked like it was moved to the Monday night because we were going into this game 8 points behind Rangers with 6 games left. So we were going to hopefully we're going to beat Aberdeen and be 5 points behind with 5 games left.
Yep.
See, like, we're in this DeLorean. It's the 1st of April 1996. At this point, we're at peak mad for it. We're all walking about like monkeys with piles, with baggy jeans on and gazelles and all of that, eh? And we're all listening to the Trainspotting soundtrack as well, eh? So it's like it's a very off its time, this match. And this game was the debut of Jorge Cadete. Chris M's come in and says, Kev, it was on STV. That might have been right. I was at the game, so I can't remember what channel.
I remember watching it with my dad. And I'm not convinced. Because it was Jerry McNee commentating as well. So I think it was.
You could be right. I just thought when I watched it back there, it was the STV highlights I was actually watching, and maybe know the live commentary.
I don't think we had Sky in '96, so I think it was. I think the viewer is right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're always right. Our viewers are always right. They're very knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than me and you. Hugh O'Donnell, I'm just going to mention his comment. Love this show. Hope your boys have found the Fontaines DC to your liking. I do. I love them. I love the Fontaines DC. You heard of them, Russell?
No.
2 great albums.
Really?
Get on it. Get on it. They're from Dublin. They've released 2 albums in the last 2 years.
All right.
So they're from Dublin, a very, very good band.
Cool.
So this is Jorge Cadete's debut. Now, Jorge Cadete was presented to the Celtic fans on the 24th of February 1996. And he was paraded at a home game against Partick Thistle. So the bold Georgie comes on with a sort of, it's a cord denim jacket on, I think, and he walks onto the park, blesses himself, picks up a bit of the grass and kisses it. That's what he does, and he waves to the crowd. Celtic Park's getting done up at this point, and I think the capacity was only about 35,000, if I remember correctly, at this point. I remember Cadete, because my first ever Celtic European trip was in 1992 to Lisbon, and we got beat 2-0 that night, and Jorge Cadete scored both of the goals in Lisbon to put us out. I still say to this day that both goals were offside. I actually do think both goals are offside, because as we got to learn, he liked playing on the shoulder of the last man.
Absolutely.
So he always looked like he was offside. But I still say the 2 goals were offside. I remember Gary Gillespie missing a absolute cracking chance for us just before Cadete scored, actually. I actually chucked it down in Lisbon that night, and this was before the stadium was done up for the European Championships, which were held in Portugal. So there was no cover. I was ringing. I had done the day trip. It was a great day. It was a magic day, actually, but we got beaten out of Europe, and the Portuguese polos took a wee fancy to swinging their batons on outside the ground as well, just as these Portuguese polos seem to actually like doing. So you might ask, why was the reason that it took Jorge Cadete 5 weeks to make his debut? 5 weeks, and he missed 5 games during those 5 weeks, including 2 draws, one against Rangers and one against Motherwell. And the main reason for him was the man who put the blazer on the bowling club, Jim Farry. So at the time, Fergus McCann was gone off his head, basically, at Jim Farry, saying he was holding up the registration. And it turned out to be true. 3 years later, Fergus McCann took Jim Farry and the SFA to court and absolutely won. And Jim Farry paid the ultimate price by basically getting sacked. He was thrown under his blazer was thrown under a reversing bus, and he paid the price for doing that. Do you remember much about this, Russell? What age would you have been at this time?
So at this time, I remember Cadete's debut. I remember there being a transfer thing at the time, but I don't know the ins and outs about what happened with Jim Farry and all that. I can't kid on to, because I was too young. I was only 8 years old, I think, at that point. So it just wasn't. It wasn't my bag at that time. You know what I mean? I was too busy, watching the game and then thinking about, like, I don't know, playing Kirby outside or something. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't really, court cases and that, or protracted transfers weren't quite high on the 8-year-old Boyce's agenda, I've got to admit.
Basically, what actually happened, this was in a day when fax machines were still used to arrange transfers. And as became a bit of a habit with Jorge Cadete, he was having a dispute with, it isn't even Sporting Lisbon, it's Sporting Club de Portugal, That's the right name.
Yes, that is the full name, yep.
He was having a dispute with Sporting Club de Portugal about money, and this became a feature of Jorge Cadete's career all the way through it, that he was always falling out with these clubs about the old Spawn Dulux. So basically, when international clearance was faxed through, Jim Farry says it wasn't right because Celtic hadn't agreed compensation with Lisbon for Cadete, and the whole argument went back and forward, and eventually he was registered, I think, about 2 days before this game. That was when his registration went through.
And I've got to give a shout out here to, an ACSOM contributor, Lawrence Connolly, he sent over the Lawrence files, didn't he, Kev?
Yes.
And I wanted his take on it, knowing that he would have been prevalent in that era, knowing that if I could think of anyone to be able to give me some good feedback on a juicy story with the SFA and Celtic, he would be my number one choice. And I think what you're talking about there, it was the third attempt, wasn't it?
It was the third attempt.
That's ridiculous.
Basically, what happened 3 years later, it was proved that Fergus was right, and he should have been registered on the 26th of February, 2 days after he was paraded at Celtic Park. When the first fax came through, that was signed and that was totally legal. And Jim Farry was the fall guy with us. And there was also another person there in the SFA at that time, a wee guy called Sandy Bryson, who years later would become embroiled with another registration scandal, which was never really sorted out either. So basically what actually happened was Cadete missed these 6 games, including a semi-final against Rangers in the Scottish Cup. This is not hindsight, and this is not me looking through my green-tinted specs or like just being absolutely a mentalist. But Cadet's registration not going through probably cost Tommy Burns a title.
Yep.
It probably cost Tommy Burns a title because Cadete broke into that team and he was superb right away. He was the difference that we needed up. He was the difference that we needed up front. And the 6 games that we missed, we actually did miss him. Especially, I remember the nothing each against Motherwell.
Yeah,
that was an absolutely. We needed Cadete that night, and when you look back on that cost us the league that season. Not that 6 weeks we had to do without Jorge Cadete, and the semi-final that we had to do without Jorge Cadete cost us the league that season. And this is what we can do with hindsight and narrative. I mean, at the time you were going, maybe eyes, maybe nose, I don't know. 3 years later, when Fergus McCann takes the SFA to court, and when he takes the SFA to court, he's got the whole of the Scottish media against him, saying, what does this wee guy ken? He doesn't know nothing about our traditions, our committee rules, this and that. And me, Fergus, has gone, no, I'm right. He cheated, and I'm going to prove that he cheated. 3 years later, he was proven correct. So it wasn't until 3 years.
Still good though, then, eh?
What they can say, if we Fergus was here in 2012, then you would have seen a completely different Celtic take on the old firm. He would have actually done. He wouldn't have stopped until there was title stripped. There was every game expunged for the last 10 years to be 3-0. He wouldn't have stopped, unlike a current incumbent who's actually leaving, who done everything in his possible power to keep the old firm alive. And it is alive and well because of him. And I said that on Monday, and I'm going to keep on saying that. And I'm going to keep on saying that. When you look what Fergus done in 1998, by the time he took it to court, he chased it for 3 years. 3 years he hunted down the SFA and eventually won. Proved that they were cheats.
It was shocking. I mean, there's an interesting aspect of it as well that Lawrence had sort of put in the Lawrence files. And he'd said, basically there was a point where Celtic accept the position because the Scottish Football League registration deadline expires on March the 31st. And if Celtic do not accept registration on March the 30th, Cadete will not be available to play in any league matches in Scotland for the remainder of the season. Now, that is naughty. When you're basically, because by Celtic accepting it, that means Celtic are going along with the fact that that was it was the right thing, but they're not at all.
They're not at all.
It's so naughty, so naughty.
It's basically getting your hand shoved up your back.
Yes,
and getting told.
That's it.
You've got a Portuguese international sitting there who's desperate to play, who can make a difference to your team. You know that the SFA have done wrong, but they basically went like that. Well, you need to accept this, or he's not going to play this season.
If you think
that's blackmail. That's blackmail.
Yeah, that's how I read it. That's how I read it, Kev.
That is utter blackmail. When I read Lawrence's thing again, I was like, wow, I was taken back. I was a bit like you. Well, I was older than you, right enough. I was 20 at that time, and I was like, every day in the paper there was something else. Cadet's no going to sign. He is signing. He's no signing. His registration's been rejected again. And you're going, are we ever going to see this guy in a Celtic jersey? Bizarrely, and I can't remember anybody calling him this, but seemingly Cadet was nicknamed the Lisbon Lion. Now, if anybody can in the comments can tell me at that time, but I can't remember anybody on the terraces or on the supporters' buses calling Jorge Cadete the Lisbon Lion.
No.
That's just something that I can't do. So, Cadete eventually comes to make his debut. We're playing Aberdeen on a Monday night, live on STV. That's got a bit of a different ring on it than live on Sky.
Sounds better, actually.
It sounds better. Live on STV. So, the team that walks out at Celtic Park that night is Gordon Marshall in goals. Stop the sniggering at the back there. Jackie Mack, Tom Boyd, John Hughes, Tosh McKinlay, Simon Donnelly, the Maestro, Peter Grant, Stuart Gray, Pierre Van Hooijdonk and Andy Tom. 2 subs came on. Brian O'Neill came on for Paul McStay, and obviously in the 72nd minute, Jorge Cadete comes on for Andy Tom. This is an old school Tommy Burns 4-4-2. No messing, attacking fullbacks, 2 strikers, let's go for it. Now this Celtic team at this point was playing some of the best football I've ever seen Celtic play.
Yep.
This is a team that's remembered for years and years. And when you meet the players for that period, and we've been lucky enough for what me and Paul have done, we've become good friends with Simon Donnelly, Tosh McKinlay and that. And when you speak to them about this period, their biggest regret is never winning a title for Tommy Burns. But when you look back at this period, they all say it was completely enjoyable to play football at this time. What's your thinking about that team that I read out there? What's your thoughts about that team?
Couple of observations, right? We'll get the trivial one out the way, right? Both goalies are wearing the same top, just with different club crests.
Correct. I noticed that. I noticed that. Right?
See, I've started looking out for things through your lens, Kev. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, you catch me out with something, the bugger. I've got to notice everything. So, yeah, I found that quite interesting. I knew that obviously you had template kits, but it's quite funny seeing on the same night in the same match that both Watt in goals for Aberdeen and Marshall for Celtic were in the same top. Secondly, my comparison I drew, and it was from watching the game, there was very much a team in England playing just like that at that time, and that was Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United. Mm-hmm. And I think they are very reminiscent of each other, Tommy and then Kevin Keegan, how they played their 4-4-2 formation with that sort of, it's 4-4-2 going on, 2-0-8. Do you know what I mean? It was very much gung-ho. And I liked that, and it was attractive to watch. And I think you're right. I think one of the things that stands out when you look at that team as well is just thinking of Andy Tom. He was a club record signing at one point, wasn't he? And he was, at his peak when he joined us, 29 years old, I'm sure. It was about 2.1 million. Van Hooijdonk he would have been 27, Dutch international, coming into his peak years, on fire. You've got Cadete, who's the striker for Portugal, was captain at Sporting Lisbon, coming off the bench. And you're thinking, I remember we were getting told it was a biscuit tin mentality then that Fergus McCann had. It's not a bad roster up front, is it?
Mm-hmm. As a decent team. One name that jumped out to me, I'm just trying to find this comment here. Roy Croppy says you couldn't wait to get off the bus and into the park with this team. That's true. You couldn't get a ticket for love nor money. Everybody wanted to go and watch this Celtic. And our old friend, our new Monday pal, Tony Haggerty, as he says, that the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never-boring Glasgow Celtic. This was the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never-boring Glasgow Celtic. This was a team, when you think of Celtic as an image, the style of play, this is Celtic Football Club. And that was all down to the man in the dugout. It really was. It was all down to the man in the dugout.
I agree. So I've got a question.
Yes.
So I watched, and it's not because I know the answer, by the way, this is not a chat, it's because, right, so there was a guy playing with long brown hair for Celtic who I did not recognise. Oh, have I beaten you to something here?
No, you go say it.
I did not recognise at all. So when I looked at the lineup, I did join the dots and thought, it must be that guy. Who is he?
Stuart Gray.
with the long hair.
Yes.
Is it?
The guy was Stuart Gray. His dad was Eddie Gray, Leeds United legend. Now, Stuart Gray, see when I see him in that with the slick back hair, it reminds me of it reminds me of the friend of this podcast, Simon Weir, and Take the High Road. It was a slick back, and it's very, very 1980s. Now, I remember I went to a game. I mean, he was at Celtic for about 4 or 5 years before he left, and we went to a game against Inter-Cable-Tel. It must have been at the start of the John Parnes season. And my pal turned round to me and said, Stuart Gray's the worst Celtic player I've ever seen in a Celtic jersey in my life. That was his comment.
Really?
I think he played under 30 games for Celtic over 4 seasons. And if somebody would have asked me, did Stuart Gray play that night, I would have went, no, he didn't. But he's got a hand in the first goal. He does it. He burrows like a waltzer at the edge of the box and swings the ball out to Tosh McKinlay. Tosh McKinlay then crosses the ball, and Simon Donnelly rises like a salmon, but 12 yards out, and puts the header in. I mean, that's we're 1-0 up after 2 minutes, and the place goes mental because we're 8 points behind, 6 games to go. We're still in the league title race by that point, unlike this season,
Aye.
What's Stuart Gray's biggest claim to fame, apart from his dad?
I don't know. I think he went to Ruston and Diamonds. That's about all I know about him.
He played his dad in the Damned United.
Wow.
So
very good.
So that's probably the biggest thing he ever done in football, was play his dad in the Damned United.
Very good.
So I like that one. When I found that one, I like that one. I do. So we're 1-0 up after 2 minutes. The temporary stand's gone mad. Every place has gone mental because we loved going to watch the Celtic team. We actually did. This was great. A goal after 2 minutes, you knew you were in for a night. This is going to be cracking. The second goal is set up by Tosh McKinlay again. Gordon Marshall rolls the ball out to him. He's about 25 yards from his own goal, and he shells a ball forward, and Big Van Hooijdonk breaks offside trap. The Aberdeen goalie, what did you say, was it Watt? Michael Watt. He runs out, stops, then decides to go again, and Big Van Hooijdonk gets there before him and flicks the ball over him, and it goes up some height, it came back with snow on it. So it drops into the back of the net. What I love about that goal is it Gary Irvine or Stephen? What's his name? The Aberdeen defender. It was Smith. Aye, Gary Smith. Gary Smith. It was Gary Smith. Aye, it was. Who grabs the ball, throws it down, and is absolutely fuming with the goalkeeper for actually not coming out and taking it Big Van Hooijdonk. I mean, that's right. It was a hard take by Van Hooijdonk. It wasn't as if it was a simple take. You had to, only somebody with his big, long, sort of lanky legs would probably been able to do it. But it's a great goal. So we're 2-0 up at half time. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 goals, 2 assists by Tosh McKinlay. The third goal. On you go, Russell. No. Carry on. The third goal, we're into the second half. Tosh McKinlay picks up a dreadful pass by Pierre Van Hooijdonk. Then he starts running like a dog chasing a bin lorry up the wing. Right? He goes past 2 guys, runs about 40 yards with the ball, 50 yards with the ball, lays it out wide. I can't remember who crossed it. They cross it. And Simon Donnelly volleys the ball into the top corner for about 16, 17 yards. It's another cracking goal. It's another fantastic goal. We've scored 3 great goals in this game so far.
But Tosh McKinlay, again, his involvement yet again, and actually that was my favourite bit, was that one. So he did the sort of wee Jenkins sort of run. Quality, man. He's some player, eh?
Very underrated. This is probably his greatest game. When you look back on it for, like, when I watched the highlights of this again, I was like, I can't remember. I can obviously it's remembered for what we're going to speak about, but then when you watch Tosh McKinley's performance in this game, you go, "Wow, that is a performance that you want for a Celtic fullback." When you watch Laxalt on whenever it was, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever that game was.
Happy days.
When you watch Laxalt on Sunday, man, and you go, look at Tosh McKinley, 350 grand for Hearts. Fantastic fullback. He reminds me.
Value, that.
When you watch that run up the wing, it reminded me of Kieran Tierney. It was like, because it was all determination. There was a bit of ability there, but it was pure determination to actually get up that wing and get the ball in. So we're now at the fourth one. We get a corner kick, and guess who swings in the ball for the corner kick? Tosh McKinley swings in the ball, and Big Pierre at the back post bump you back of the net, 4-0 up. The place has gone absolutely mental at this point. This is a great Monday night out. The stage was set.
The stage was set.
It was set. So Andy Tom goes off on the 72nd minute. The place rises to acclaim the curly-haired Portuguese international who's going to come on, and we're all going mental, and he rolls up the sleeves and he's like, when you see that Celtic top, I think it looks great on Jorge Cadete because of the bagginess of it. It just looks so good. Like,
that's my first ever kit.
I've actually still got my original kit up the stairs, and it still fits me. Really? I was going to wear it the night, but I thought that was just kind of boasting, But I think what I actually admit, it must have been a 10 on me when I bought it. I must have not been able to wear it in a gale, or I would have got blown to Narnia or somewhere like that. Blown back to Kansas.
That was the style then, though, wasn't it?
It was,
The baggier tops. I think you've got to look at that and go, was that not a hindrance? Like, because I remember, obviously, I was we were playing for the football teams, and it's one size fits all, and I used to hate it, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just felt uncoordinated for the get-go, the baggy shorts and the baggy shirt and all that. I'm trying to tuck mine in. I was doing the roll up the sleeves and all that as well. Do you know what I mean? It's a strange that folks thought that would be good for sportsmen. Do you know what I mean? You think of,
and it's not like the day when you've got the dry fit and all the. Producer Paul will probably tell me here, but I'm sure the replica kits were exactly the same as the players' issue kits at that point.
Yeah,
I don't think they were different material. Frank McAvenny comes in. Kev, you're sure it fits? It does fit. I will prove it does fit on another broadcast. If you tune back in next Tuesday night, I'll prove you it fits. So I will prove it fits. Roy Croppy says there was no yellow in the kit. Correct. There wasn't any yellow in that kit. So, 72nd minute, Cadete comes on, the place goes absolutely mental. Ian McIntosh, I'm just going to go back to this comment as well. Tosh gave Henrik a shiner, and he's got a wee angry emoji as well. He did do that, and if you ever go and see Tosh McKinley doing his after dinner speaking, he tells you a great story about him giving Henrik Larsson a black eye in training.
Wow.
It didn't do his Celtic career very good. Let's put it that way.
No.
So Cadete comes on. Paul McStay picks up the ball on the edge of the 18-yard box and drives forward. He plays a ball through to Peter Grant. Now, Peter Grant's running across the halfway line with all the confidence of a defensive midfielder of a team that's 4-0 up. He kens he can go across this halfway line, and there's no consequences if he loses the ball because we're 4-0 up, eh?
Aye, they have a nosebleed normally.
So, out the corner of his left eye, he sees Cadete, and Cadete Cadete has peeled away from the Aberdeen defence. He's virtually on the touchline. And, like, Peter Grant plays this pass. I don't know if you maybe noticed it, but did you see the way Grant played the pass? It was almost horizontal when he played it, as if to go, I need to try and get enough weight on this, and I need to. Like, it was almost as if he was doing the lambada, like trying to get underneath the.
He knew that was the one time that season he was going to be in that position. If he was playing a through ball like that, he was going to make sure he looked good doing it. I don't mind that at all.
It was good. I must admit, I did pause that when I was watching it to actually see his body shape. It was a perfect body shape when he's playing that ball. It's like one of the guys that you get at the five-a-sides that turns up with shin guards on and comes and turns up 5 minutes early, like 10 minutes early for a warm up and that, and he's Vauxhall Nova. And with the alloys and all of that on it, and it's one of them. And he strolls about, and when he passes, he does all the moves and that. That's what Peter Grant was like. That pass, that was a world. What could you say? It was like Strictly Come Dancing for playing a pass.
Aye. It's like a Hollywood save by a goalie. Do you know what I mean? When they palmed over the bar, but they could have just caught it. Aye. He did with that pass. You know what I mean?
Definitely, he exaggerated his move when he done it. Cadet's onto the ball. He takes one touch. He takes another touch. I can remember this as clear as day. I was sitting in the north stand. I was sitting in the north stand next to Big Terry McCormick, and everybody's standing up as he's bursting through on goal. And we're going, oh, is this it? This is. His second touch looks like he's knocked it too far in front. But then we see that burst of speed that nobody else in the Scottish games actually got at that point.
Yeah.
He runs and he gets there before the Aberdeen goalkeeper, and he doesn't chip the goalkeeper, he clips it over the goalkeeper.
So nice.
And the ball goes into the back of the net, and the place goes absolutely mental, absolutely berserk. I remember we're jumping about, going absolutely daft. When you watch the highlights back, Cadete, he gets grabbed by the folk behind the goals, and like Big Van Hooydonk's grabbing him as well, and they're all over the moon for him, and we're all over the moon. And this is the famous. We blew Radio 5 off the air. As Radio 5 were commentating on this game, the noise of the celebration was so loud that we blew them off the air.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yep. Amazing.
And what you've got to remember is there's just over 30,000 in the ground.
I know.
There is not 60,000 in the ground. There's just over 30,000 in the ground. It's one of these moments, like, I've been thinking about this a lot during the pandemic and that, Now, this goal, in the grand scheme of things, is not a massive goal, and it's not a massive goal in Celtic's history, but it's one of the best moments I've had watching Celtic, because I shared it with a whole load of people. And it's one of those moments where you go, this is why we love football. Because it can give you one of those moments in any single game. I mean, he was probably destined to come on with score with virtually his first touch of the ball. That's what football does as well. You hear me talking about football gods all the time.
I agree.
And this is something about football gods. The football god went, he is scoring. I'm going to make sure that he comes on and scores with the first touch, one of his first touches. And that's what makes football special for me. That this goal, which is no a goal that won a cup final, won a league, got us through a cup tie. It was a fifth goal and an absolute hammering of Aberdeen, blew Radio 5 Live off the airwaves. That shows you how special we are as a support. Because that moments like that, a Tommy Burns Celtic, George Cadete was just absolutely fantastic. What do you remember about watching that in your living room?
Remember watching living room so clearly that game. I don't know why. It's probably sadly the game I remember first of being a Celtic game was the Coca-Cola Cup final against Raith Rovers, right? And then moving on swiftly But that one really sticks out, and my dad was particularly animated at it. And I was kind of supporting Celtic through him at that time, if you know what I mean. Like, I didn't get half the stuff he was going on about, do you know what I mean? I'm just watching two teams in the pitch and still trying to work out what offside means and what 4-4-2 and that means, do you know what I mean? But I was hooked in the game. I had been for maybe a year by then, 2 years probably by then, since the 94 World Cup. So I was getting it, trust me, and it was like, the Cadete thing was huge at the time. I remember my dad going on about it like mad. And that goal, see what I didn't realise when I watched the highlights back, is the pace of that actual move. In my mind, he was miles, in my memory, if you'd asked me to describe it before we did the highlights, I would have told you he was clean through it and he almost scooped it over the keeper, like standing still and scooped him. You watch it back, it's going to hunt. The whole thing's so quick and the execution's amazing, but it's actually the quick-mindedness to do it, because as you say, it looked like the ball was running away from him a bit. Mm-hmm. But he had thought it all, it's amazing. And because it had been this 5-6 week to transfer saga that was a load of nonsense, it was a moment, wasn't it? It was a moment. And I think at the time, if we're being completely honest, it was the moment we probably thought we were going to win the league. I think he thought he could, like that, not maybe it's a guarantee, but that euphoria could creep over. You go, do you know what? See, with him in the team now, between now and then, we could probably do this. That's what I mean. You were actually thinking that you were going, we've got 5 games left. The games that we've drawn previously, now we've got that man. He's going to turn those draws into victory. Yep. There was still a Celtic Rangers game left. So you're still going, this man could make the difference for us in that game. Because he came with a massive pedigree. He had scored 2 goals against Scotland. I think he scored 2 goals against Scotland when Portugal beat us 5-0. And was that the night Ali McCoy's broke his leg? Somebody in the comments will probably tell us that. Not that I'm celebrating a Rangers player breaking his leg playing for Scotland. I think it was a 5-0 defeat. It was in your head,
that came into my head. But moments like that in football, when I watched that goal again, and if we get back into Celtic Park anytime soon, the first goal that we score in a full stadium is going to be mental. Everybody is going to actually go mental, and the team are going to get such a lift from having us in the stadium.
I think you're right.
I saw that and I'm going, that's moments. That is really moments that you want to be with your dad, you want to be in the stadium, you want to be with your supporters club, you want to be getting back on your supporters bus and going, did you see that? That was great, hugging each other and all of that. That's what we want to get back to. That's what football is for me. It's a community. And what I've realised in the last year, and especially when I've started researching things like this, results are only a small part of supporting Celtic. There's a lot more to supporting Celtic than results. And this is going to sound like hindsight and pure and utter rubbish. But if somebody says to me, you're going to have a really, really, say we won 8, and somebody at the end of 8 in a row, this wee devil, angel, whatever you want, comes and goes like that. Look, you're going to lose the 10, there's going to be a global pandemic, but see, the season after that, when you're all back in the ground and everything's back to normal, is going to be the best season of your life. I would take it. I would actually take it. And I'm looking forward to actually getting back to the stadium now, because I think all this European Super League club and all of that is just making me realise that Celtic's more than that. Celtic is far more than that. And it's up to our board to realise that they're nothing for us. And nights like Jorge Cadete actually, I think backs up my romantic nonsense.
No, I love the way you put that. I think I'm there, mate. I think you're spot on. It's all about moments at times as well. And one of the things with being a fan as well, it's about hope, isn't it? It's like, you're always wanting signs of hope, mate. That whatever dream it is that you've got are going to be reality. I realise that's what I'm trying to say. And I think I think that Cadete moment, it was that, and I think you're right as well. It was the fact that we'd signed someone of serious repute, and within 2 minutes he's doing that. He makes you start dreaming, you know what I mean? See, when you think that, you just start joining all the dots, don't you, and going, Portugal international striker, real pedigree, 2 minutes it took him, and he's chipping keepers already, he's not even fit, and you just start to, and in fairness, I mean, I looked at the, this is why I love this show, right, because like, I went down, I had a look at the Aberdeen team. Stephen Glass was in it, went to the EPL. Mm-hmm. You had Scott Booth, who I think went to Dortmund after this, and then went to 20, whatever you call them. They had a £1 million player, Bernard, playing for them.
Paul Bernard, who they signed from Oldham. Dean
Windass.
Nah, we didn't talk about Dean Windass anymore. Well, he's proved himself to be an utter...
but he can play. He was all right playing anyway. I'm not getting into all that nonsense, but fair enough. And then obviously Billy Dodds up front.
Mm-hmm.
Decent team, mate, is what I'm trying to say here.
And we completely back-pocketed them that night. We completely played them off the park.
I wonder, I mean, I think of the repute, some of those players are, where a lot of those players ended up spending maybe the next few years of their career away from Aberdeen, and what level it was at, and you think, wow, like, how often could you think of Aberdeen players all making an impact in the EPL, in a year or two's time? They were 3 or 4 there, it's fascinating.
And always liked Ian Jess as well. Jess was always
playing.
He was. I don't think he was playing that night, but I always remember him at that time playing for Aberdeen. I always thought
quality.
He was a quality player. He was always linked with a move to Rangers. It never seemed to happen. I think every summer he seemed to be linked with a move to Rangers.
I watched a show with him in the summer. It might have been on Sportscenter or something. He did the height of lockdown, and they were trying to do as many 1-to-1s. He did one for an hour. He lives in I think he lives in Barcelona now.
I think he does, yes.
And he was very good, but the vibe I got was he didn't like Rangers much, to be honest with you.
Well, if that's true, he's good enough for us. he's good enough for us. I kind of liked him for a reason.
But I just thought I'd point out, you think of Aberdeen at that point, how many teams were there if you were to actually go through that league? You would say, oh, they had him. It was... And then, you wonder why Celtic were attracting players like, Portuguese leading strikers or whatever. The league obviously was a lot more competitive, and a financial balancing between the Scottish League and other leagues was probably more in tandem at that point, Kev. I think that's what kind of struck out to you, because, yes, I knew we were going to go down the line of how did we get, the Sporting Lisbon captain, even if he's fell out with his club. You envisage that now, it's not going to happen. How are you getting him in his peak years? And you look back and you think, well, how were Aberdeen signing £1 million midfielders? That would be the equivalent these days of £1 million then, I would suggest £6-7 million player right now.
It would be. I mean, this is you're absolutely spot on. This is before the wages in England absolutely rocketed, even though Sky had got involved by that point. I mean, I just automatically presumed this game was on Sky. I just automatically presumed that, because it's been that long now, and it's quite scary if I actually think about it. Sky have been involved in football for longer now than when I was going to football before they got involved. They've been involved in football for nearly 30 years. So it's quite mad. Where I can remember pre-Sky and after Sky, which is completely. I remember terraces. I remember standing on terraces and that as well. And that's something like, apart from going to junior grounds and that, is a lot of fans will never actually experience. And it's quite weird being on that wall, on that crux, where you've got old school football and football changing. It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre. I mean, Celtic signing Dutchman. It was Andy Tom as well. Andy Tom's getting a lot of love in the comments as well.
Yeah.
Signing guys like Tom Van Hooijdonk. And you actually signed a guy who I'd first seen putting us out of Europe as well. So it's like...
It's mad, eh?
It's quite mad. Nowadays, it's normal to sign foreigners and guys coming into our league But they weren't this quality. They weren't this quality. They weren't this quality. This player.
Here's my conundrum on it, Kev. Right, Tommy Burns we spoke about earlier as manager. Now, obviously, we're in a predicament right now. Who's going to be the next? Who's going to be the next boss? Do you want to get on, the coaching side of it? We don't care if they know anything about Celtic. So the Tommy Burns, what I'm trying to say is, did he get that team playing that well because he got it? He gets Celtic. He got the whole Celtic vibe, and that's how Celtic should be playing. Or is that because that's just a part of it? That but in reality, that is just how he wanted to set up his teams and play. Because my worry is that I think there is a lot of it was Tommy understood exactly how a Celtic team should look and how a Celtic team should play, and I think that was a huge part in it. I don't know, is that gone from the game now, or are we risking it by not having someone who, or pining for a manager, i.e. someone like Howe, who doesn't have any sort of Celtic connection, or has football just completely moved on to them?
I think football has moved on, and sometimes, if it going over old ground, like, how did Neil Lennon get the Celtic job? Because he was a Celtic man. What he had really done as a manager. Burns had been a decent manager at Kilmarnock, but the aesthetic that he got Celtic playing in would be one thing I would ask any manager. By the way, we need to play like that. This is the way Celtic play, and you do not back down from those principles one little bit. And it probably ended up costing Tommy his job, right enough. I remember getting absolutely gubbed off Hamburg, a very, very poor Hamburg side. But then we had two centre-halves that were John Yogi Hughes and Malky Mackay, and we got absolutely roasted. But then I remember going close, like in Paris, with one of the best teams I've ever seen. That PSG side was one of the best teams I've ever seen. It won the Winners' Cup in '95. And we took them close in Paris, but they completely destroyed us at Celtic Park. As soon as we went out and tried to attack them, they just picked us off. It was completely different. So there needs to be a balancing act. But for me, we're Celtic. We play a certain way. And for me, any manager that comes in, I want to see us go back to that. I want to see us go back to that. I want to see us look at the youth. I want to see us be absolutely gung-ho. I want to see us just be... I want whoever it is next season, right, we're all going to be desperate to go back to the football next season because we'll hardly been there for 18 months or however long it's going to be. But I want to be desperate to go off that bus because I want to see somebody Celtic because we're absolutely fantastic. And that's what the club have got to get right.
So, see that team as well? I've got two more questions, right? Was that... Who's Hughes? John Hughes?
John Hughes, Yogi Hughes.
He's signed by then already. See, I think he was later. I don't know why. And the second question was, is this the time when David Ginola was getting linked to signing as well?
I think Ginola was linked at the start of that season when we moved back to Celtic Park.
And would he have fitted in like a glove?
Oh, David Ginola would have been an absolute star up here. An absolute star. When we talk about legends of the game, David Ginola would be welcome back at Celtic Park at any time if he would have signed for us at that point.
I think he would have fitted that the whole mindset. I know we'd like to go in parallel universes, you know what I mean? It was serious business yesterday getting, ripped for even the mention of Jose Mourinho, but what about David Ginola playing for the Celtic? That's what I want to talk about, Kev. I think I don't really want to have a big talk about him. I just think it would have been... I think he fitted the ideologies of the rest of that team. I think he was part of it. He'd have been at the final piece in the puzzle. And I do think of it often. He's another one in the ground as well, wasn't he? He's been photographed. He was photographed at Celtic Park. It was real.
I think when the day Celtic Park opened, he was there. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody could probably come into the comments and say that, but I'm sure he was in Celtic Park the day that they opened the North Stand. I'm sure he was there.
He would have been a dream in that team.
That's better than Ivan Toney hiding in a cupboard in Lennoxtown, ain't it? But David Ginola sitting in the stand, man. I mean, last the second season, Cadete was there. The three amigos arrived by that point. In the second season, Cadete scored 38 goals in 47 games. But by the end of that season, it was some record. He was fantastic. Go into YouTube and watch a collection of George Cadete's goals for Celtic. It's utterly amazing. The boy was a player. An absolute player. He was like a pickpocket. He used to just be able to stand on the shoulder of a defender. Then when the defender thought he had him, he was away with a handbag or their wallet. He was offski, and he could get that. He could get that like wee half yard. Then we can go into Ibrox the following season when he gets that goal chopped off when he's like 4 years onside. Another honest mistake, like the signing was an honest mistake. Do you remember that goal? When he volleyed it into the net and he was given offside.
Offside. I watched it like 2 nights ago because I was doing my homework. I remembered that goal. It's just a joke, isn't it? Really.
New Year game. Another one where we can look back on it with massive regrets. Unlike this season, we've got no regrets this season, but a lot of these things are chucking up regrets that you go, my. But hey, it gives us moments to talk about. That's what Celtic's about. It's not all about winning. It's all about being a community and having moments that we're all going to remember. And this is what Screamacelica's trying to bring back to us. And we will continue. And we're doing in the dumps now, but hey, them moments are coming back. Don't you worry. Because I've been here long enough in the tooth, and I've seen it. What goes around comes around. I know that. Right. Getting to the end of the second season, he started falling out with us. The old I want more money scenario came up. Seemingly Fergus McCann promised him more money if he done well and blah, 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 this and that. So he left us in that summer. All the three amigos left us, all citing the same thing. Fergus McCann says Jorge Cadete was the worst player that he's ever dealt with regards to money. He says he was the worst. His agent and his whole harem surrounding him, it was just utter chaos anytime you were trying to deal with Jorge Cadete. Callum McFadden, who does Football CFB, has actually got an interview with Jock Brown. And Jock Brown talks about going to flying, because Jock Brown became our director of football.
What was he called? Was he called that?
I can't remember, but he had
a title, general manager.
General manager. He became our general manager, and at the end of the second season, he went to Portugal to try and get Jorge Cadete to come back, and he leaves. If you listen to the podcast, basically, Cadete he went to visit Cadete in his Portuguese villa. And his wife didn't even blink an eyelid to Jock Brown. So Jock Brown is convinced that he's talked Cadete into coming back. Convinced. Jock Brown lands in Glasgow, and Jorge Cadete phones him in tears saying his wife won't let him go. His wife won't let him move back to Glasgow.
I've heard him say that story.
It's a great. If you go to Callum's podcast, Callum's actually going to be appearing on the Football Insomniac on a Friday night with Colin Watt as well. So right. If you listen to that, it's a great interview with Jock Brown. So subscribe below. Subscribe. Get us to 12,000. So after post Celtic, I think with Cadete it's what if. Do you imagine the following season Cadete and Larsson? Because that would have been the following season.
And the thing is, I mean, you need to remember, good players can play with good players. No two ways about it. You know, you can't have enough good players. I mean, I think it was lucky that we got Larsson, you know what I mean? When you actually looked at that volume of goals by Cadete the previous season, the Henrik signing, that needed replaced, Kev. And I know Larsson probably first season, I think he was about, is it 18 he got? 18 league goals, I think he maybe got first season.
19.
There you go, I wasn't far off. But I think we have to be honest and say them together undoubtedly could have worked. Undoubtedly. And the beauty of that would have been, as I keep talk about ages and stuff. Cadete at that point would really be coming in his peak years, 28, 29, and you're playing with a guy like Larsson who's so intelligent. It's going to be a joy to play with, a guy who knows, just you'll build up an understanding. Those two, it could have been glorious, man.
It could have been glorious, eh? It could have been glorious. I would really look forward to that. After he left us, I'm going to have a comment. I'm going to actually go back to a comment with David Limond. I think that's Limmy's brother, David Limond. Anyway, he's gone on about Roy Aitken taking a shy in the 1989 Cup final that Joe Muller scored for. He's still raging about it, pal. Aye. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's have a look. Oh, there it is. Roy Aitken took a shy that led to Joe Muller's goal. Swings and roundabouts. Give it a rest with honest mistakes, Pat. Mate, if you're taking anything we say seriously, I would go and get yourself some help.
Calm down, mate.
Calm down. You can tell he's still raging about that shy, eh?
Just calm down. There's just...
No need, eh? Absolutely no need.
Like easy, mate. Honestly, just stay calm, big man. You don't need to look. If you're not happy about honest mistakes,
I know.
We're talking about one player, right? This is what gets me, man. We are talking about Jorge Cadete. We are going to talk about his transfer and his offside goal because that is relative to Jorge Cadete. Do you understand, big man? So the reason we're not talking about Roy Aitken shy in 1989 is because it's nothing to do with the conversation. Do you get it, mate? Is this difficult? What is wrong with you, man?
Producer Paul comes in. Goodbye, David. That block was not an honest mistake. It was completely deliberately.
I hope you've not blocked him before my rant, Paul,
I think you can still watch, but you can't comment.
All right, good.
I think I could. What I loved, well, we may as well talk about the 89 Cup final there, eh? What I actually loved about that Roy Aitken, that 89 Cup final, was no stealing the shy, was the fact that in the 91st minute, Celtic got a free kick down at the corner flag.
Right.
And Roy Aitken, everybody lines up, and Davy Cooper should have got sent off, actually, because he swung a punch at Peter Grant. And Roy Aitken places the ball down. And everybody goes into the box for it, and Roy Aitken horses the ball into the Celtic end and tells everybody to get back to the half-fine line. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. This was the day before multi-boy, so he just fired it right into the Celtic end and went back to the half-fine line and tell everybody to get back.
I like that. That.
The best bit of sportsmanship I've probably ever seen. Right, after Cadete's troubles followed him after he left Celtic. He went to Celta Vigo. Then he went to Benfica, where he actually paired up with Pierre Van Hooijdonk again at Benfica when he signed for Benfica.
No way, of course.
He did that.
Of course. I hadn't joined those dots. Damn. That's... Wow.
Aye, I know. He then went to Bradford City. I remember him playing for Bradford as well. Then he went to Amadora in some Portuguese second division. So Andy Sawyer's coming. Oh, I think we're getting visited tonight. Penfold and Tim Burgess are Penfold. Am I Penfold and you're Tim Burgess?
I don't know, mate.
Are asking Rangers fans if they're raging about 89. We've also been raging and talking about why Cooper should have been sent off. I says he should have been sent off. I'm no bored about it. It doesn't worry me one little bit, mate.
What is wrong? Anyway.
Everybody takes everything far too serious, eh?
Honestly, calm down. It's my only message. See, instead of don't be an arse, right? I think we should start signing off the show with calm down. Just calm down.
I think I've been pooed up for my swearing anyway by the powers that be, so I need to change my catchphrase at the end.
Have you?
So
calm down it is.
I think after what I think whatever I says about what happens in my bathroom, kind of tipped a couple of folk over the edge at the weekend, So, aye, I'll need to. Andy Sawyers comes back, and why are you talking about it then? Because we're just having a ramble, mate. This is like a conversation you have at 3 o'clock in the morning in a kitchen with your pal. We're just having a ramble. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, mate. Where am I? All right, aye. So
Cadete's career has
he retired at 33. George Cadete retired. Yes, he retired at 33. He went on Celebrity Big Brother in Portugal. I can't remember if he won it or no. Then he appeared on the programme Offside with Tam Cowan. Right? So he flies back into Scotland and goes into this programme with Tam Cowan. And he tells Tam Cowan he loved his time at Celtic. He wants Martin O'Neill to give him a trial because Martin O'Neill was the manager of Celtic at that time. And he says he's got himself fit and he didn't like the way that he left and he wants to make it up to the Celtic fans. Well, 2 Celtic fans took him up on that. Jerry Britton and Derek White took him up on that. And he ended up going to Partick Thistle. But only after being pictured in Kirkcaldy in a Rafe Rovers shirt, holding up a Rafe Rovers scarf, saying that he was going to sign for them.
Oh, I didn't know that bit.
Aye, he done a reverse Machiavelli.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that bit. I remember his. Did he not make his debut against us?
He did, and he was booed quite unfairly. I thought he was booed because time moves on. He was a cracking player, and I didn't think he deserved to get booed. Andy Sawyers again. No problem. I'm just waiting on what happened to the 10. Well, we lost it, pal. I'm sure. Is that not clearly obvious?
Andy, you've had plenty of time, mate. Honestly,
I know. Aye.
But I remember Cadete's debut because we watched it, and again, funnily enough, in his Partick Thistle strip, and if you can find the footage, I don't know if it'll be on YouTube or not. He also played with his sleeves rolled up. I remember stuff like this, right? So I remember he had the long sleeve and had his sleeves rolled up again. And he hit a shot. I think that the keeper sort of palmed over the bar. I didn't have to dive or anything, do you know what I mean? Just sort of stung the palms over the bar. And I think that was as close as what he got to reliving the glories. Did he get a goal for Partick Thistle?
No, he was there 4 months. So. He was there 4 months, played 5 games and didn't score. So,
it's mad how someone with that ability has went and tried like Celta Vigo in the La Liga, then back to your native homeland, Benfica, arguably the biggest team there. It's not working. You go to the English Premier League or the relegation team, you could look good in that, if you know what I mean, because you should probably be one of the standout players. Couldn't score. You go back, it's Portuguese second division stuff. How's his career just, it's slowly sort of slid down the hill? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's happening here? Because you would think, okay, you're leaving Celtic because you want more money. That's fair, because obviously you're rating yourself at that level and Celtic aren't willing to pay it. You would think on the back of such a prolific spell at Celtic as well, this guy would have kicked on even further. Do you know what I mean? In the bigger leagues, even of course the smaller leagues, it's mad how he just, some players lose their powers quite early.
It's just one of these things. It looks like, he fell out with every club about money, by the looks of things, and whether he was getting badly advised by his agent or his missus, we can only surmise with that. But he was declared bankrupt in 2014, was George Cadete, and when he got took to the court, he basically got took to his court saying he shouldn't have got made bankrupt because he still had assets, and he had earned over €4 million in his career. Now, €4 million, some players earn that in a month. No,
I know.
And so it shows you the difference between the wages and the times and the wages, eh? And he told the court, he says, I did earn €4 million, but I've had 2 divorces and I've got no money left. That's why I'm staying with my mum and dad.
Wow.
So the last I heard of George Cadete, he was living with his parents. and somewhere.
45.
Well, he's 52 now.
No, at the time, though.
At the time, aye.
He's 69 he was born, I'm sure.
So there you go. That's it's a sad, eh? For me, Cadet's welcome anytime. Welcome anytime back at Celtic Park.
I agree with you on that, Kev. Definitely.
I know. Let's move on to the music, eh? Maybe that'll cheer up our...
Yes, mate.
The folk who are hinking we're raging, man.
Honestly, they're a Tuesday night and rage about David Cooper kicking Roy Aitken. His piece.
I mean, I know, it's just... Oh, who cares, man? They're getting their viewing figures abuse, man, eh? They're getting their viewing figures abuse. Right.
I've got a bold statement, Kev. Have you got an intro here? We'll go for it,
No, bold away.
Right. I'm thinking the opening 3 tracks of my album, I think are up there as the best 3 tracks to an album I've ever heard in my life. As a collective of 3 tracks. I think that it stirs so many memories for a start, so maybe there is a bit of bias involved. But the first 3 tracks of my album, that is a strong front 3, mate. I'm telling you. It is a strong front 3. The Riverboat song, the Day We Caught the Train, and then the Circle. That is a strong start to an album. It's a statement made already.
Obviously, Russell hasn't even told you what album that he's gone with. So the album Russell's talking about tonight is Ocean Colour Scene Moseley Shows.
But I'm hoping people are going to get it for that.
Aye. So Moseley, when did Moseley shows come out? That would have been, that was that April, eh? That was that April. Moseley shows came out. Now, wait. Moseley shows for me became massive because of TFI Friday. Because the Riverboat song was the theme tune to TFI Friday. And it was a programme that we all, if you were a certain age, we all used to watch because it had some great bands on it. And I think if when you look at the charts at this time, I think TFI influenced a lot of the chart music at this time.
100%.
Because if you got like a prime spot on TFI, if you were the band on TFI, everybody watched it. There was millions watching you. And Ocean Colour Scene were one of the bands that definitely jumped on the coattails. They are a decent band, but for you to say those 3 opening songs are the best songs on...
I'm not saying they are the best. I'm not saying they are the best, but it's up there for me as an opening to an album that puts a big smile on my face. I'm not going to say it's the best opening 3 of all time, come on. But I think as a collective, but I think they're a strong front 3, mate. I think to open up an album, when I listened to it back, I thought, you know what? Those three tracks that is a strong opening to an album, it is.
Tinny comes in. Sean Ryder on TFI was hilarious. There was quite a lot of hilarious guys on TFI Friday. I remember the Noel Gallagher one when they had it in a house in London and he walked down the street and went in.
Really?
I can remember that one as well. He obviously had the Colombian flu as well. Noel Gallagher that night when he was on TFI Friday.
Is there a place for TFI Friday in modern society though, Kev? Or do you think
no anymore?
I don't know. I think something like TFI Friday you would only be able to get on an online channel. I'm not hinting at it in here. But I'm being honest, I don't think...
Stop telling folk what we're going to do.
If only. But I don't think you would get away with it on TV. I think you need to have a longer leash to do something like that. But I think a lot of folk would miss that sort of stuff and they don't want sugar-coated nonsense. They want it to be a wee bit raw and real. I think there's a huge place for that in the world today still. Huge.
I think there is. I think there's a massive gap in the market for a sort of chat, like a show like that, which is on the edge. You look at The Word preceded it as well. The Word was edgy. The Word was, that was the time the pub shut at 11 o'clock. and everybody went home to watch The Word. And I remember some great bands on The Word, and it was just so.
Yeah, I've watched a few episodes of that on YouTube and that, in fairness, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Mark Lamar made his debut on that as well, didn't he? Was that Mark Lamar's show?
Zinko comes in, and remember the Tube was pre-TFI as well. The Tube was a music programme in the 80s, and that was a fantastic, an edgy programme as well. A really edgy programme with Jules Holland and, what was the name of the other presenter, the female presenter, ended up marrying the boy for INXS. Paula Yates, that's it. That was... They were fantastic shows, and you can't get that anymore. These shows don't get commissioned anymore.
Not on TV, but I think I still think there is ways and means that those sort of shows. It's surely part of our culture is to have edgy shows that make you feel alive. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's so much politically correct nonsense these days. You know what I mean? If you can't take the mick out yourself or even be able to watch anyone take the mick out of someone else when it's all in good banter, then, I mean, come on. I don't, or even I think the topics of conversation, when you look back at TFI Friday, you couldn't even have those conversations anymore now, because it's almost like a world we live in now where, we'll just kid on that doesn't go on in the world. Do you know what I mean? Or, the world's no perfect, far from it, and there's characters out there. Do you know what I mean? And it's...
You look at the thing. The Word was peak 1990s lad culture, and Soccer AM kind of took that as well at the end of it. You have a look at it now. If anybody went to the producer with the Soccerette idea for a telly program, for a TV program, they would never get away with it. What you want? Nice looking girls to parade about in skimpy shorts, and they would never get away with it. We interviewed Jerry McCulloch, and he used to present Topless Darts on the telly.
Really?
Aye. That is a programme, Topless Darts. Kimbo Music comes in and says, I remember The Word, it was rubbish. Aye, it was. For the majority, it was absolute rubbish. But they still had some cracking bands, and occasionally they had a very good feature. Those music programmes are lost on the TV now. If you remember about the TFI stuff and that, this is around the time Trainspotting had came out in the January of that year as well. So everything in Britain was great. Everything was brilliant. It was great. All the good culture and art was coming out of this wee island, and it was like a throwback to the 1960s, swinging London, Carnaby Street, and all of that. It wasn't really, but that's what everybody reinvented it with. What I would actually say was, like, that Ocean Colour Scene album is a fantastic album. I love Policemen and Pirates.
Yeah, it's a tune,
I love that takes me back to Sunday afternoons in the Newmarket Inn, and folk used to put on the jukebox and the Policemen and Pirates. But I remember Ocean Colour Scene being on TFI Friday quite a few times.
Yeah. I think with that album as well, I just think, and I wanted to talk about TFI Friday, so we discussed that before we came on, but I also think the album itself, I'm glad it got the recognition for what it should. Do you know what I mean? Whether it was through TFI Friday or not, because it's got so many songs that, for me, take me, on a personal level, take me back to so many memories of carryouts and camping. Do you know what I mean? That's what it reminds me of, or being at Tea in the Park, and that being whoever's on the battery powered ghetto blaster, that being blaring and stuff like that, and seeing them live. I used to go with my pal Shawnee Sherman, your biggest fan again, Kev. But we used to go. We made a deal. I think we went 4 Christmases in a row at the Barrowlands to watch something.
I've actually got tickets for this Christmas at the Barrowlands.
Have you? And we did that like 3 or 4 years or 4 years ago, I think it was, and it became a nice dish. And it was like, those songs are timeless, man. They're rock and roll, man. Like they've got tunes that we were talking about Stereophonics a couple of weeks ago and what their impact is at live festivals. And for me, Ocean Colours are put in that bracket massively. That's not the Hermes guy, is it?
No, it's not. I was just thinking about switching on my light because the light's disappearing here. I forgot to put my lights on again. Mind you, it's not my house, right? Seemingly. Seemingly I just break in. They are. I've seen them a couple of times now. I went to see them at the Albert Hall in Stirling. I went to see them the last time they played the Hydro. And they were really good that night, where Martha Reeves and the Vandals supported them.
Oh, wow, did they?
Aye, Martha.
Now they are cooking gas. I love that.
That was a good night as well. What kind of annoyed me about that night with Ocean Colours scene is like the drummer, Oscar's laddie now plays with him, and the guitarist's son plays with him as well.
Wow.
It makes you feel old. It does actually make you feel old. Like when
I get that.
When that happens, and it just seemed a bit like showy, if you can what I mean. It just
I know what you're saying, but I suppose it's, I don't know, being in that position might change it a wee bit, but I know from the outside it might look a bit cheesy. I do get that.
I'm looking forward to seeing them at the Barrowlands. Really are looking forward to it. It'll be a great night, as you say. There'll be loads of sing-alongs, and it's a good album. It's one that I never really got at the time. It was my wife's a massive Ocean Colours fan, and she basically got me into Ocean Colours.
And you weren't that big a fan back in the day, no?
Nah, I was probably too.
Wow.
When I get onto the album that I was listening to at this time, you could probably tell that I was moving.
You're on a different train, mate.
I was on a different train at that point. And to tell me the truth, I think some of the fact that they were the TFI thing maybe put me off.
I get that.
I think it maybe did.
That's good honesty there, Kev.
I'm honest about it. I mean, at that time, I was, you're going into 96, 97, and spiritualised. I was very, very into spiritualised and stuff like that. But by the time 10 years later, I went to see Ocean Colours seen at the Albert Hall over going to see Spiritualised in Edinburgh. So I'd come full circle by the time 10 years later. I love Spiritualised, as folk know. I think Jason Spaceman's an absolute genius. Before I talk about the album that I want to talk about, we'll have a look at the charts, because the charts are absolutely fantastic.
No, mate.
They're absolutely brilliant.
So good.
I know, when we says that we were going to do this, I was like, right, I'll have a look at the charts. And then I made a mess of it with the album that I was going to pick, and I was a year out. But that'll make sense. The charts, number 1, Firestarter by The Prodigy.
Love it. Love it. I seen that band live 2009, Slane Castle supporting Oasis, right? And we went to the site to get beers, obviously, with Oasis in anticipation for that. And Slane Castle's like just a big slope, right? So the stage is at the bottom of this slope. You come through the woods, you walk through the woods for half an hour, and you come out the top, and it just looks, it's actually an incredible visual. What you see, honestly, Kevin, it just looks so cool when you come out the back. But anyway, to look at it going up the way and watching waves dancing or jumping about to The Prodigy will always stick to me as going, I was really glad I was getting to see it for that angle, but I was also raging I wasn't one of the folk making a wee bit of the waves, do you know what I mean? Because it was so cool. And that song, to me, when that video came out, that reminds me of being, obviously, at the time, I remember it out at the time, and it stuck with you then. Do you know what I mean? It was so iconic. It's unbelievable. It's really sad what happened with Keith Flint, the singer as well, and, you know, God rest his soul, but that song is, as I say, iconic.
It's a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest number ones ever. Hands down, one of the greatest number ones ever. And like, it just shows you with mental health issues. You don't know what people are going through, what Keith was going through, and that. I was at T in the Park the first year it moved up the road there. Where did it move to? No Kinross, but Glen Eagles.
Balado?
No Balado.
After that,
wherever it moved to.
Was it Strathallan or something?
Aye, well, they played there, and my wife wanted to go and see, I think, Avicii or Calvin Harris. It was Avicii, actually. So, but the Prodigy were on the other stage, and as we were leaving, the Prodigy were playing, and I think I saw about 30 seconds of them, but it looked absolutely mental. It looked really, really good. That's probably one of the best number ones ever, because it's right in your face. And there is a band that are punk. Liam Howlett is a punk.
That's I think it's the Sex Pistols, you know what I mean, with a different type of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is the exact same vibe. You don't know what to make of him in terms of it's so like it's so eye-catching, but it's so also different to what you're seeing, and you know it's real, it's raw, and it's got a message to it as well. Oh, definitely, I think punk's the way I would describe it. I was going to compare it to the Sex Pistols, but punk's.
No, you're right. Even their later stuff now, like obviously before Keith passed, has been fantastic. Some of their later albums are great as well. Number 3 in the charts that week was Children by Robert Miles.
Aye.
Right? I hate this song. Not because of the song, because I was once in a house with somebody who was a bit merry, shall we say, who decided to play this song 30 times in a row. It was after we had been to the pub, and he somehow managed to take control of the hi-fi, and he played Robert Miles' Children 30 times in a row. So I didn't like that. I don't, and it's probably a good, but it's not a bad song. But that's just ruined it for me. Ruined it for me.
Fair.
Number 5. Again, you want to speak about this? Gabrielle, Give Me a Little More Time.
Man. What a tune! I play that all the time, that song. I was buzzing when I seen it in the chart, and I know folk might think, Gabrielle, what you on about, man? Listen to it. That could easily be for the 60s. That's a Motown song as far as I'm concerned. It's complete Motown. It is brilliantly arranged, brilliant vocals, and that is my guilty pleasure of the week is Gabrielle, Give Me a Little More Time. Get it on your Spotify, get it a blast. It is, we were talking about last week, Amy Winehouse and things like that. That, to me, is a tune that could easily be an Amy Winehouse tune. Easy days. And that is not saying that, I'm not saying that lightly or anything. I genuinely think that is that type of music. I thought, and it doesn't sound as pop as perhaps what Gabrielle's career was to go on to be. Do you know what I mean? But I think that song, whenever they struck gold with it, like, don't get me wrong, I've never actually dug out that album, which I probably should, just to find out what the rest of the tunes are like. And maybe it was an album that was based like that. If so, I would love it, which, thinking about it, I don't know why I've done that. I'm going to do that. But a big mention of that song, man. I remember it being on, and now that's what I call music. It was now 33, it was on, now 34. And I obviously just played it track 1 to 19 back then. I'm like, kind of nodding along, playing my Sega Mega Drive to that tune. Do you know what I mean? Thinking, quite like that, but I better not tell anyone. Do you know what I mean? But now I'm out there, mate. I'm telling everyone, Gabrielle, Give Me a Little More Time. Tune of the week, mate.
And she was on the telly a couple of weeks ago dressed as a plant pot or something like that, and that singing kettle I was going to say there. But see that programme that ITV had, where folk dress up and you had to try and guess who they were.
Aye.
I think she actually won it. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody in the comments will probably
Paul saying she did a collaboration with East 17. I do remember that. Is that Will You Ever, or Did You Ever, or something like that, I think it was called.
No, I didn't ken my...
No, you know,
No. If you ever, producer Paul comes in and
if you
actually
ever, what
says...
did I say? Did you ever? I was close.
Did you ever? You were close, though. I'll give you half a point.
Thank you.
At number 6 was Gina G. Just a little bit.
And do you know, at the start of that song, a Celtic player's name is quoted, Kev?
No, I don't.
Did he got?
Oh, no.
Yes.
You've got to get us taken off air for that, man. You definitely.
I'm sure that's what she said.
But he wasn't a Celtic player at that time. He wasn't a Celtic player.
No, I know.
That's like... number 7, Ocean Colour Scene. Can't I remember what song it was?
Hey, we've got the train.
You've Got It Bad.
You've got it bad.
You've Got It Bad. Number 11, Oasis, We Don't Look Back in Anger. And number 16, Cast, We Walk Away. What a chart that is, man. That's a fantastic chart. The album chart.
Right then.
Number 1, Take That's Greatest Hits.
Yeah. Not my bag, like.
Somebody's came in, Russell, and says that wasn't what you actually says. Gina G. It wasn't Gina G. It was Wigfield and Saturday Night.
Oh, damn. That was my big moment, too.
Chris M. I'll give Chris M the credit. Oh, are you leaving me? Is that you going? Oh.
I'm back to a bit of a redneck, you know that? Like, I got right into that there, man. That was a complete wrong song. What? Oh, man.
Don't worry, mate. Don't worry, we'll make mistakes.
Just call it, mate. Just call it.
Back for Good's a decent take, that song. And I'll only hear anything else actually says against it. That's a decent take, that song. Oasis were number 2 with What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yeah.
The Beatles were number 4 with Anthology 2. At number 12 was All Change Be Cast. 16, Stanley Road by Paul Weller. And number 30 was the Blue Tones, Expecting to Fly. Every one of the bands, obviously, apart from Take That and the Beatles, all would have appeared on TFI Friday. That's the TFI Friday effect there.
That's good point. Yeah, I get you.
That's the TFI effect there. The album I'm going to speak about was number 24 in the charts last week, and it was Underworld, Setting Toughest in Infants. You were talking about OCS. I'm in a completely different train. I'm listening to stuff like Underworld, Left Field, guys like that, Spiritualised.
I'm over here listening to Wigfield.
You're listening to Wigfield, eh? The Verve, as you and Boyce says, eh? And Setting Tough of the Infants is an absolutely fantastic album. It's the second album by Underworld. The Underworld took off at this point because of the Trainspotting. But Trainspotting comes out, but he goes, "Oh, what's that song with him walking across the bridge?" And you go, "Well, it's Underworld." So everybody went. So Born Slippy wasn't on any album. It ended up on this album when this album was re-released later on in the year. But this Setting Toughest in Infants, it's hand in the air rave, but it's really, really edgy. And I sometimes, my wife is really into like the Cream classics and stuff like that. And I'll play her stuff like Daniel Avery for Underworld, for Left Field, and go, "You'll really like this, you'll really like this." And she goes, No. And I think the tune's an utter banger, and I just want to be, "Oh, that's magic, that." And I think it's like so you've got your reward bits behind your eyes, your frontal, what's it called? Your orbital frontal cortex. It makes you dance, right? It's your reward sensors in your brain. I reckon mine's only go at a certain BPM. So I didn't like all that Cream stuff and all of that. But if you play Underworld, play Left Field and that, I can dance to that. I can put my head to that. But I've been to see Avicii, I've been to see Calvin Harris, and I'm like, I I didn't get it. I didn't actually get it. But it's not like my wife would probably say to you, it's because you didn't like dance music. I probably didn't like dance music, but I like electronic music. In the same with Underworld, the new stuff is just as good with Underworld. And I was talking to my pal the day when we were talking about Left Field and Underworld and that. And I've got like no want to go to the T in the Park disco tent or whatever it's called and that and see a DJ. But I want to go back to the Barrowlands and that and see Left Field. I want to go to see Underworld play. I didn't want to see them in a dance venue. I want to actually see them in a concert venue. And that's what I'm really looking forward to going back. I'm looking forward to going back to the football, looking forward to going to the gigs, looking forward to going on holiday on that. But it's been a couple of things over the last couple of years. I missed Underworld at the Royal Concert Hall. I'm not missing them again. Anything that's like that coming out, I'm gone. I'm going to have I need to go and see stuff like that because the last year's probably made me realise that I do miss stuff like this. And it's brilliant. I love this album. I recommend anybody go and get, if you're working for him, put on this album tomorrow as you're updating spreadsheets of whatever you're doing for him. It's a fantastic album. Zinco comes in and says, seen the Orbit, the Barrowlands, totally agree, Orbital live. If this was the Orb gig in about 96, 97, Zinco, I was there as well, because I saw the Orb and Left Field quite close to each other, and I get the two gigs mixed up. One of them looked like a big bear appeared on the stage, but I think that was Orb. I didn't think that was Left Field. What I remember about Left Field at the Barrowlands was their PA system went down like a pyramid, and it was really, really loud. It made your pants flap, man. It was like that loud. See, when the bass went, it rumbled your stomach. It worked its way up. It was really, but that was because it was a low down PA system that they had. It was fantastic, utterly fantastic. What I reckon about this time, Trainspotting, you look at the charts, this is the height of Britpop. There's guitar music there. We're a couple of months away for the Trainspotting soundtrack comes out, which I think basically spelled the end of Britpop because there was a focus on electronic music. I think when you look at that Trainspotting soundtrack and the music that Danny Boyle used in the film, and the fact that the film became that big, ended Britpop as it was. That's just my. That's just
that's a good take on it. That's a good take on it. That makes sense. I never really thought about that before. You've kind of thrown me a wee bit there, but I think it's an interesting angle on it. I don't think it's the only thing that did. I think there's obviously numerous other factors, but I'll give you that one. I think that could definitely be.
If you just go back to that time, how many people bought that Trainspotting album? There's guitar bands on the Trainspotting album. Iggy Pop got a massive boost. His career basically took off again after Trainspotting. But a lot of the electronic stuff in that came into populace after that. I mean, you look at as it Born Slippy, Underworld, that completely launched their career. That Left Field album now, Left Field are on Trainspotting as well. Leftism is still in the charts. It came back into the charts after being on the Trainspotting after being in Trainspotting. So I can see a shift at that point. But maybe in my own musical tastes as well at that point, But definitely around about this time, there's a shift in my musical taste anyway.
No, that's totally fair what you're saying there. I think it does show you. I mean, I think when everyone associates, trains, you like to Trainspotting, TFIs that we touched on with a lot of indie rock and roll bands at the time. There was a completely other train, as we said earlier, that people were on, and perhaps it was gathering more pace than what I've given it credit for, because I probably wouldn't have thought of that as ending or being a big factor in the Britpop thing sort of dying. But when you put it the way you do and you think how influential Trainspotting was as a movie, a cult thing, the soundtrack as well, you tie it all in, anything that very much like anything TFI were promoting was going to be in the UK charts. Anything that Trainspotting was promoting was going to become a culture.
Definitely, and I started going to like nights at the Arches, Club 69 in Paisley, and a couple of my friends were students in Glasgow, and they used to have big house parties in Glasgow, so you would always be hearing this stuff and the houses and that. So, it was a good time. It was a good time. Jorge Cadete was magic. Celtic weren't really winning much, but one of the best times going to watch Celtic ever, and one of the best times for music as well.
It was my favourite chart to go through since we started.
Oh, aye, definitely. I forgot how good it was when we actually went through it. Russell, we've been on for an hour and 40 minutes.
No, we don't shut up though, mate. You know that. We got given an hour initially. We now get given an hour and a half, and we're still running 10 minutes over.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. The comment section's been utterly wild, which we like.
I love that.
It's been brilliant. Thanks for everybody for their comments. Please subscribe. Please tell people about the show. As somebody says, Tuesday night is the new Friday night. This is a new TFI Friday, Russell. We've sussed this.
Yes.
We've actually sussed this. All we need to do is guests and bands. And we're
It can all happen, mate. It can all happen.
It can all
I've plenty of room in my bedroom for them, mate. Plenty of room in my bedroom for a live band, mate.
Right, everybody. We'll see you all next week. And remember, calm down, eh?
Calm down.
Just calm down, eh? See you later.